The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Should I feel guilty for not fulfilling all three of those conditions? Yes, when it comes to the whole truth, I probably fell short. But 2 out of 3 isn't a bad result. Well, as they say, life goes on. Karen, my wife, is an ambitious and promising investment manager, and she intends to take her father Lou's place when he retires at the end of the year. For the past 30 years, Lou has run a large pension fund of a government agency that handles billions. The fund's committee reviewed applications for his successor and, taking Lou's own opinion into account, narrowed the choice down to Karen and one other candidate. As far as I'm concerned, Daddy Lou is a cantankerous old curmudgeon and a rather pompous jackass. We've never gotten along. He's loud and dogmatic in his judgments, and he holds my career in very low regard. The less time I spend in his company, the happier I am. When Karen and I announced our engagement, it was Lou who insisted on drawing up the harshest, almost oppressive prenuptial agreement imaginable. In short, in the event of marital infidelity, whatever is left of you will be little more than a shadow, or a wet spot. If there are children as well, the terms become severe. The alimony payment formula was even calculated and specified in advance. Still, none of this bothered me in the slightest, because the concept of fidelity, and honoring it, means a great deal to me. My name is Larry Trumper. Karen and I were both 29 when we met at a conference almost 3 years ago. I'm the CEO of a company that creates limited partnerships and then manages them. Karen works for an investment consulting firm. On the day we met, she was giving a presentation at the conference about the tax benefits and advantages offered by some new financial products. That evening, over dinner, Karen and her colleague Sasha joined me at my table. Both women behaved quite flirtatiously, and after dinner we decided to go dancing. In the end, the three of us wound up at a nightclub called Spread Your Wings. On the dance floor, I was enjoying myself with both women around me, but after a while it was Karen who laid claim to me. Naturally, I didn't object at all. Either of them could have made me happy. Karen was undoubtedly the driving force behind the romance that flared up between us. Less than 2 weeks after we met, my nights turned into something I had previously only been able to dream about. It was a Friday. I came home from work and Karen was already waiting for me there. Let's skip dinner and spend the evening at your place, she suggested, giving me a quick kiss. Once we were inside, she sat me down on the couch and, smiling, began to slowly take off her clothes, confidently, teasingly, as if she already knew the effect it would have. The atmosphere quickly grew charged, the air seemed to thicken. Karen moved closer, giving me no time to think, and took the initiative. I barely managed to breathe out a warning, but she didn't stop, and moments later I lost control, completely surrendering to the sensations. After that, I helped Karen up, and without a word she led me to the bedroom. Now it was my turn to return the favor. I didn't rush, trying to be attentive, feeling every one of her reactions, every movement, until she finally lost all self-control. Oh God, don't stop. More. Like that. She cried out. It took her a few seconds to come back to herself, breathing heavily, before she relaxed and sank into the pillows. By then, there were no pauses or doubts left between us. That night stretched on until dawn, and it seemed as if it would never end. We repeated that Friday experience once or twice a week, until our marriage began to crack. Our relationship wasn't just about sex, it was something more. Just like that evening when Karen laid claim to me, she behaved possessively at the parties we attended. Given the nature of her work, parties were held weekly. Karen made it clear that she didn't like going to them alone. Men, she said, were always making crude jokes about her. Constantly trying to touch her, accidentally bump into her, or casually brush up against her. When we weren't going to parties, we had lunch together, danced, or simply spent time alone. In short, Karen and I were almost inseparable right up until the very end. For both of us, it was our first marriage. Credit where it's due to Lou, arrogant jackass that he was. The old man put on a truly grand wedding extravaganza for his little girl. Most of Karen's salary depended on commissions. During our first year of marriage, my income covered our main expenses, and we slowly began saving for a house of our own. About 6 months before the unraveling, Karen managed to land several major contracts. And the bonuses she received from those deals were very impressive. My wife's career was on the rise, she kept achieving new successes, but her behavior changed too, and not for the better. Right before my eyes, she was turning into a younger, but no less snobbish, version of Daddy Lou, and somehow, almost without noticing it, I stopped being as good a partner for her as I once had been. Alongside her professional success, Karen and Sasha, who was still unmarried, began organizing girls' nights. They did this about once a month. The place they liked to go dancing and having fun was the same club, Spread Your Wings, where we'd had such a great time when we first met. The last few times, Karen came home quite drunk, and her clothes looked wrinkled and disheveled. Seeing this, doubts about her fidelity began to creep into my mind. At a recent family gathering, Lou drank too much and went completely off the rails, hurling curses and insults left and right. It was impossible to put up with, so I left Karen the car and found someone to give me a ride home. Some time later, my wife returned, very angry with me for what she called abandoning her there and running off. I told her she should deal with it herself. It was her father, after all, and if he didn't know how to behave decently, I had no intention of wasting my time in the company of a drunken, unhinged troublemaker. Less than a week after that argument, I was attending a seminar at a hotel in the city center. During a break, while I was standing in the lobby and contacting the head office, I saw Lou step into an elevator. Maybe there was nothing unusual about it, but the more I thought about what I'd seen, the more suspicious and unsettling it began to seem. A friend of mine from work has a brother who works as a private investigator. We talked, I told him about Lou, and he promised to check him out quickly. It turned out my father-in-law likes to spend his money on escort services. Perfect. I generously rewarded the investigator for the valuable information. With a trump card like that up my sleeve. The next time that jerk started giving me a hard time, I planned to give him a serious kick in the ego. Recently, there had been several break-ins in our neighborhood. I asked my landlord whether I could install and connect a motion sensor at the apartment entrance. He gave the go-ahead, and I mounted the clever little device above the doorframe. When triggered, it recorded a short video on a mini camera and then, using our Wi-Fi connection, sent an alert notification to an app on my phone. Karen was out shopping when I installed the device. I tried to show it to her when she got home, but Karen didn't even listen. She waved me off, saying she didn't have time and needed to get ready for a girls' night out. I warned Karen that it was about time she cut back on all these parties and girls' nights. One word led to another. We didn't exactly have a fight, but the discussion got pretty heated, trading sharp remarks. We argued for a while, each of us standing our ground, the conversation going around in circles. No matter what arguments I made, it was like talking to a brick wall. Karen didn't want to hear any of it. I said that her obsessive need to keep running off to the dance floor wasn't something a married woman should be doing. She brushed off my words, saying that dancing was her way of relaxing and simply a normal pastime away from me. You're jumping to conclusions, and in reality everything is completely different from what you think. She said. Around 7 in the evening, Sasha arrived, wearing jeans and a light blouse. A few minutes later Karen joined her. She was wearing a dress, not tight but ending above the knees, and the two of them left, saying almost nothing. I decided to stop by the club and see how Karen behaved during yet another one of their girls' nights. Friday nights at Wings were always incredibly popular. My first problem was finding a place to park. Inside the club it was so crowded that I had to stand far from the dance floor. Since pushing my way through was no easy task, it took some time to spot Karen on the dance floor, and what I saw did not please me at all. She was pressed up against some sleazy guy. One of his hands squeezing her from the side while the other brazenly groped her backside. When the song ended, I saw them head toward their table, practically wrapped around each other. Sasha and another slick-looking guy were sitting there as well, their chairs pulled right up next to each other. At least, wearing jeans made access to Sasha's intimate assets somewhat more difficult. After sitting down, Karen and that bold guy from the dance floor also pulled their chairs tightly together. From where I stood, it looked as though all four of them had at least one hand occupied under the table. It wasn't long before I saw the guy next to my wife pull his hand out, sniff his fingers, lick them, then smirk, lean toward Karen, and say something to her. Smiling, she leaned back and pressed herself against him again, wrapping her arms around his shoulders. I quickly typed and sent her a message. I've seen enough. Get a room. I'm going home to pack my things. I left there and was almost home when I got a reply. What things? I'm moving out. Less than a minute passed before Karen's ringtone started chirping on my phone. What the hell is all this supposed to mean? Her voice sounded angry, almost irritated. Based on what I saw tonight, the question isn't whether you'll cheat, but when. And I'd say that when has already arrived, judging by how you behaved this evening. Nothing happened. Not tonight, not any other night. You misunderstood everything and jumped to the wrong conclusions, Karen protested. Well, his fingers were dry until they dove under the table. And when I saw them again, they weren't dry anymore. There was nothing like that. You're very mistaken, Karen insisted, and I can't come up with any explanation for why your hands weren't on the table either, I added. So right now, I really want to be as far away from you as possible. I didn't do anything wrong. It was just harmless flirting. You're jumping to conclusions, Larry. Everything was not the way you think. If my wife needs to flirt with strangers in order to feel like a woman, then I have to ask myself whether I even need a marriage like that. That's not how it is at all. I didn't do anything wrong, and you. I'll say it again, I saw everything. What you were doing in that club wouldn't pass even the most basic test of marital fidelity. To me, it smells like cheating. Bottom line, this conversation is pointless. I've already decided I'll spend the next few nights at a motel, at the very least. That's it, I'll be in touch. With that, I ended the call, since I had just pulled up and parked near our house. I didn't take long to pack, grabbing only what I'd need in the immediate future. I kept in mind that if necessary, I could come back to the apartment in a day or two and take more clothes and belongings. While I was stopped at a traffic light waiting for the green signal to turn onto the highway, my phone vibrated again, notifying me that someone was at our front door. I glanced at the screen. It was Karen. Once again, my wife's ringtone sounded. Did you really check into a motel? She asked. I'm already on my way there. You didn't need to rush home like that. I didn't think your conscience would suddenly wake up and send you chasing after me. Did you really leave that poor guy behind at the club? He looked so worked up. Although, wait. Maybe you still managed to give him some relief. Go to hell. Karen snapped angrily. How many times do I have to say it? Nothing happened. You're twisting everything again and jumping to conclusions. Oh yeah. Then why was he sniffing and licking his fingers? That never happened. Well, since you're so determined to refuse to be honest, this is over between us. Good night, I said, and turned off my phone. The search didn't take long. Just a few blocks from work, I found a motel that rented rooms for weekly stays. I paid a week in advance and moved into my room. I can't say it was a good night's sleep, but a little sleep was still better than none. The next morning, albeit very reluctantly, I turned my cell phone back on. As expected, there were several voicemails and text messages from Karen, in which she insisted on her complete innocence and blamed everything on my utterly misguided and overactive imagination. I sent her a message. How about a polygraph test? I'm getting tested for STDs today. Her reply didn't come right away and was rather evasive. That's up to you. You can spend your money on whatever tests you want. Great. When are you planning to take the polygraph test? I never said I would. Sasha told me they're no better than flipping a coin. She typed back, fine. I flipped a coin. Heads, you cheated. Tails, you were faithful. Oh no, it came up heads. I can't believe you think that. All I did was go dancing. You're jumping to conclusions. Everything was not the way you think. Karen went back to repeating the same old line. It was understood that your intimate parts were supposed to be off limits. What I saw last night didn't look like something that was off limits, I reminded her. That's not how it was. I'm not going to keep living like this. That's exactly why I moved out. I think we should try living separately. For the rest of the day, there were no calls or messages from Karen, so you can imagine my surprise when the camera at the apartment entrance showed Karen, dressed in a dress, leaving somewhere around 7 in the evening. Around 10 o'clock that night, another video from the same camera captured my wife returning home, but she wasn't alone. A guy accompanied her and followed her into the apartment. He left about half an hour later. Is it possible they were both watching an exciting 10 o'clock news broadcast together? Yeah. Right, I understood that the marriage was over, but I desperately needed evidence against Karen so that the terms of the prenuptial agreement would work in my favor. I spent the entire Sunday searching for a supplier of equipment for covert bedroom surveillance. After buying everything I needed, I decided to use my long lunch break on Monday to install it. One pleasant bonus of living so close to the office was that I now had an extra half hour in the mornings to have a calm breakfast and get ready for work. At lunchtime, I returned to our apartment, took some financial documents, packed a couple of suitcases with clothes, and put my toiletries in there as well. The hidden camera in the bedroom was fairly easy to attach to the ceiling light fixture. It was supposed to upload the recorded video to the cloud via Wi-Fi. That evening, I received a message from my wife. I saw that you stopped by. Ready to talk now? As soon as I get the results of your polygraph test, was my reply. That was that. There were no more arguments that evening. The rest of the week passed quietly, which probably made my work more productive than usual. On Friday, I extended my stay at the motel for another week. The camera at the apartment entrance was triggered again around 7 in the evening. It recorded Sasha appearing first in her usual jeans, and shortly afterward Karen, dressed in a dress, joining her, after which the two of them headed out. On Saturday morning, I reviewed the videos recorded the night before. Just like the week prior, Karen returned home around 10 in the evening, but this time with a different guy, not the one from before. Like the previous visitor, he left about half an hour later. I logged in and watched the uploaded video from the bedroom. Bingo! Now I had everything I could ever need to obtain an indisputable, hassle-free divorce. In the footage, Karen entered the bedroom already almost undressed, and the guy who followed her in didn't waste any time either, quickly shedding his clothes. She sat down on the edge of the bed. He moved closer without unnecessary words, setting the pace immediately, confidently and abruptly. Then he placed a hand on the back of her head, increasing the pressure and taking full control. Everything happened quickly, at the limit, without pauses or sentiment, just like that. "Don't stop," he said hoarsely, controlling his breathing and not allowing her to pull away until it was over. After that, he leaned back onto the bed and pulled Karen toward him. She settled beside him, resting her head on his shoulder, while he absent-mindedly touched her, as if checking her reaction. She tried to guide his hand further, but it didn't spark any interest from him. They lay like that for several minutes until the tension returned. Karen reached for the nightstand and took out a packet. But with a short motion he knocked it out of her hand. "I don't play without protection," she said firmly. "That's not part of my rules," he replied coldly. "I prefer to feel everything directly." He pulled Karen closer, pinned her hands above her head, and came down on top of her, acting sharply and without warning. For several minutes everything happened at the edge, fast, rough, almost without words. When he finished, he pulled away, got off the bed, and, without looking back, went into the bathroom, leaving Karen to come to herself in silence. It was no wonder my wife needed a lover. Now I could clearly see that all these years I had been doing everything completely wrong. Turns out all those kisses, caresses, and foreplay were just a waste of time. Karen's friend came out of the bathroom and quickly got dressed. She sat silently on the rumpled bed, covering her breasts and looking at him. Frankly, after what I had just witnessed, Karen was remembering modesty a bit late. Once dressed, the cowboy pulled out his wallet, fished out a couple of bills, and tossed them onto the bed. see you later at Wings, he smirked. Reaching out, Karen snatched up the banknotes and stared at them for a couple of seconds, then lunged at the guy. What the hell is this? I'm not some street girl, you bastard. Take your damn money and get the hell out of here. Do you hear me? You pathetic loser. Furious, Karen hurled the crumpled bills at him. He calmly picked them up and slipped them into his pocket. No problem. You weren't worth even half that money anyway. You'd better go sign up for sex classes, he said dismissively, then he disappeared from the bedroom. Karen grabbed a pillow and spent about a minute angrily pounding the bed with it, then flung it across the room. I even felt a little sorry for her. Well, almost. Come on, who am I kidding? I couldn't have been more pleased with the outcome. There was no way Karen was going to convince me now that I had misunderstood everything. I watched that video over and over again. It suddenly occurred to me that if someone were to see the video ending at the moment when Karen was holding 2 banknotes in her hand, an outside viewer might form the wrong impression of what had happened. Well, isn't it wonderful that these days there's a whole arsenal of tools available for video editing? The final product turned out absolutely perfect. The carefully prepared revenge probably exceeded even my boldest expectations. All I needed to do was return to the apartment to collect all the emails necessary for the final trap. A couple of days later, I went on another long lunch and found everything I needed. The hidden camera in the bedroom had done its job and was no longer necessary, so I removed it. On Friday evening, around 6 o'clock, I knocked on Karen's door. Well, would you look at that, just look who finally decided to honor me with his presence. My wife greeted me sarcastically. To what do I owe this pleasure? This is your home too, you know, you didn't have to knock. Karen, I've decided that I no longer need the polygraph test, I told her. It was never needed in the first place. Larry, Karen snorted. So, are you ready to talk? Karen, sit down. There's something you need to see. The matter is already settled, so consider this a fait accompli, I warned her. As you know, this is still my apartment. Accordingly, I had every right to install cameras here. Since the video was recorded in my apartment, on my equipment, I also have the right to share it with anyone I choose. I can't wait for you to see it, and afterward I'll tell you who else I've already shared it with. The smug grin slid off Karen's lips, replaced by a strange expression in which panic mixed with horror. I pressed the play button. What the hell is this? You had no right, she started, but immediately choked off and froze in place, staring at the screen with eyes wide open, and when the video ended, she lunged at me like a fury, nearly clawing at my face. Where's the rest of the video? It didn't end like that at all. Larry, you damn bastard, where's the ending? She screamed. Well, Karen, your reaction tells me everything I need to know about our marriage. No, I'm sorry, no, I didn't mean to hurt you, nothing like that. Not a shred of remorse. Maybe I'm jumping to conclusions again and everything isn't the way I think, but it sure looks like you were paid for sex. Just like an escort. So tell me, where am I wrong? Where's the rest of the recording? Karen lunged at me. I'm not a... I gave him the money back. Well, judging by what I saw, you probably haggled over the price too, I shot back. So how much did you get from him? 220s. Go to hell. They were hundreds, she snapped. Wow, turns out you're an expensive escort. I guess business at Wings is going pretty well, huh? Or am I jumping to conclusions again? You son of a bitch. I'm not a street girl, oh no, by my standards, you're a genuine adulteress. This was filmed last weekend. You were married, yet you slept with someone other than your husband. That's what makes you an adulteress. And it doesn't matter whether you were paid or not. As I said, I've already done what I set out to do. She tried to snatch the phone out of my hand, but I managed to keep her at a distance. Give me the video. You had no right. And you can't show it to anyone. She kept repeating over and over. Well then, let's talk about who I've already sent it to. I was concerned that people might mistake me for your pimp, so I sent a copy to the sheriff. along with an explanatory note. In it, I expressed my deep concern that your illegal activity as an escort could negatively affect me, your husband. So I informed the sheriff that I'm prepared to testify for the prosecution. Hopefully, they won't jump to hasty conclusions. What did you do? Karen gasped in shock. I am not an escort, everything is not the way it looks. Let's keep going, I continued. Did you know that your father also uses the services of an escort? I have a private investigator's report, with all the evidence. I sent that report, along with your video, to both him and your mother. And if you're not opposed to crossing certain boundaries, your dear daddy probably wouldn't have any trouble paying for that kind of special attention. The panic and horror that had appeared on her face earlier were nothing compared to this. When Karen heard my words, her eyes bulged, her nostrils flared nervously, and her clenched fists trembled. I hate you. You're the biggest piece of shit I've ever met, she spat. Oh, and I was just about to say the same to you. Great minds think alike, don't they? Why? Why did you have to drag them into this? This should have stayed between us. If I had videos of all the jerks you slept with, I would send them too. But fine, let's continue. This recording, along with the report about your dear daddy, I also sent to the investment committee. I suspect they'll have time to review it before making a decision about the new managing director. Oh good. Letting out a cry of despair, Karen collapsed onto the floor. Within a minute, tears were streaming down her face. Karen. According to the prenuptial agreement drawn up by Lou, it appears that all the money in the savings and checking accounts will go to me. My lawyer has already instructed the bank to freeze those accounts. In addition, thanks to your family's talent for striking lucrative deals, you'll be paying me alimony. So thank you in advance, dear, and give Daddy my warm regards. I went to the front door and invited the bailiff inside, documents in hand. He stepped in and tapped her on the shoulder. Karen Tromper, you are hereby served with court summonses. It's not what it looks like. There's more to the video. You can't do this to me. You had no right. She kept mumbling, I know, Karen. I know, I'm always jumping to conclusions and too stupid to understand that it's not what I think. Hey, if you hurry up and get yourself together, you might still make it to Wings and find yourself a new client for the evening. Go to hell. Yes, that's exactly what you were doing behind my back. I never thought Retribution could be so pleasant. Well then, good luck to you. I wonder how this video would look online. I mused aloud, no, you can't. Please, don't. Please, Larry, don't do this. Please. Karen sobbed, begging, we'll see. Maybe, if you're a good, obedient girl and don't contest the divorce. I headed for the exit, nearly colliding in the doorway with Karen's accomplice. Hi, Sasha. You look great. She's not quite ready to go out yet, I tossed over my shoulder as I passed her. My sense of self-worth, shattered by my treacherous wife, was soothed. Revenge had been achieved. The sheriff did, in fact, contact me. He spoke with Karen, but since there had been no explicit offer of sex for money on her part, no charges were filed. Nevertheless, Karen was informed that her activities would be closely monitored. Her daddy didn't have to wait until the end of the year to retire. The aging lecher was simply fired. It seems he's now living in a motel. Karen's mother must have, like me, jumped to conclusions about his extramarital escapades. All of Karen's hopes and dreams of taking her father's place as managing director went down the drain. For her, it all boiled down to a simple and rather dry phrase, thank you for your interest in the position. We have decided to move in a different direction. Later, I received a message from Sasha, when all this is over, want to go dancing? My reply was, as long as it's not at Wings. When the court granted my divorce petition, I received all the money stipulated in the contract, and they also approved the alimony payments. However, after the divorce was behind me, I just couldn't resist. I sent Karen a copy of the full video. from an anonymous source. Would that count as the whole truth now? In this story, everyone made their choice, and paid their price. But one main question remains: if you were in the protagonist's place, would you have simply walked away, or would you have gone all the way, turning the truth into a weapon? Where is the line between justice and revenge, and is it worth destroying someone else's life when yours has already been shattered? Write in the comments, what would you have done?